Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here. Today we're going to be looking at my hard mode clear of Dezatopia, which is from, I think, a week ago now. I've been busy with a bunch of other things and yeah, so anyway, I'm not even sure when this is going to go up, but I figured I would just start banging out some more of these commentary things and fling them out when I do. So anyway, this is one I'm playing on extra mode. The thing is, when I got this, I was really into a lot of like the visuals, all that kind of stuff, the mechanics, but there were a few things that I wasn't so into, like the shop, for instance. I found that to be like just a bit of a distraction, and most of the time I was never even seeing what I was buying. It was kind of just like flying into it and not really caring, and I wasn't too into the regular mode. And then I started thinking like, yeah, I'm really not feeling this game. And then I decided to give extra mode a shot, where you have a single life and you're at full power from the start of the game. And once I got into that, I was like, holy smokes, this is what I'm talking about. Way more to my liking than the whole like multiple lives setup that the regular mode has and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, once I jumped into this, I was just so hooked, and it's such a good one. So I did my normal mode and my hard mode. And it's a pretty intense game at times, because I haven't played a ton of it. I think I played it for like a couple days and then I was on to other things. I just, yeah, banged out the clears, but there are still a few things that I'm not 100% sure about, like how things work or whatever else the case is. But yeah, I just figured I would do a bit of chit chat while we enjoy. I absolutely love how many layers of art we're seeing, like the plants in the foreground and then the background trees and giant plants, like whatever all that stuff is. But yeah, this game does have a lot to offer though. I'm really enjoying it now. I'm not sure like I'm gonna do a whole bunch more with it at this point, but I always do enjoy just jumping in and seeing what's what. So yeah, there are a lot of different routes. I mainly stuck with A. That was just the one I really enjoyed. I did sample a few other ones, but like to me it's like, okay, whatever. Like it's not like I'm so hooked on the game that I feel like exploring every single level. Maybe at some point. That's the thing. Like sometimes I will check something out initially, do a little bit here and there, and then I'll move on to other things, and then I'll come back later and get really into it and just do a lot more exploring, pardon me. And just the sheer variety of level design, like, yeah, the first stage is obviously pretty linear, and it's not that this one isn't either, but I do like that we have some angled stuff. So like the whole bottom right of the screen is just not something you have access to. So it puts you in a situation where you're dealing with everything within a specific shape. And I think that's pretty unique. Fairly uncommon, to be honest. And I do love how chaotic this mode gets. So hard mode, I think, if I'm, I would want to double check, so I wouldn't quote me on this, but I think hard mode is like rank 200 to 300 maybe? I'm not sure, but I know it starts at 200, so obviously you can like put it up just a tick if you want and keep going up and up and up until you want to just like cool things down again or whatever the case is. But I think the maximum is 500, and I'm not sure how it unlocks, because I think it might unlock in a way where like if you progress to a certain point, like by building your rank up during a game, then on the next run you can have like a higher amount that you can start with. Because initially I could only go so high, and then when I played better and got further and whatever, it was like pushed a little bit. Sometimes it was like pushed by 30 or whatever. And so that means I can just start at a higher rank. So I feel like this game has a lot of specifics involved. And like I said, I just haven't explored all that kind of stuff, but it's a really cool. And then here, this level, this is such a neat one. Just all these different levels, and you can just go up and down. You can pretty much go wherever you want. I haven't actually ever gone down too far. I've always stuck around the top 2 or 3. So I actually have no idea what is below, or if it's just, it gets to like the floor and then that's that. So that's what I mean, like the game obviously has plenty to just dig into and things to check out, so I think that's really cool. And I do love the weapon variety. And fairly late into my runs and stuff like that, I mean, not this run per se, but just my playing in general, I discovered that some of the weapons actually cancel out boss attacks, which I think is really cool. Oh, this boss is such a blast. There's something so satisfying about the charge up that each of your weapons has. So when you're using one thing and then you go to use another thing and then you charge up the other whatever weapons, and then you can just launch these huge blasts of firepower right into the boss's face. It's fantastic stuff. Yeah, there was just something about regular mode that didn't feel like I was playing an STG for whatever reason. Oh, I love this music too. And this is another level where, like, during this first part, I never really explored the depths of the water. Like, obviously at some point you do eventually go underwater, but yeah, there's just a lot to check out. And I think that's great when you can play a game in a variety of ways. And I love the way the weapons interact with the environment too. Like, normally the water drops will just hit the ground, but if you're doing it in water, then they become these piercing harpoons or like these sharp darts or whatever. And I think that's really, really creative, both visually and just in terms of how it plays out too. I think that's really awesome. And just the enemy variety as well that we are up against in this game is really neat. And we just got wild looking bosses, like some rotting mushroom owl or something, whatever he's supposed to be. I'm not even sure the best way to deal with the bosses per se. Like, obviously some of them go down quickly, like the one with the vines and the big fruit. I think stage 2, yeah. Like, that one's easy enough to figure out. This one, I haven't really bothered, like, figuring out the best way to go about certain attacks or avoiding things or whatever, but when you're playing on extra mode, they drop pretty fast anyway. But obviously there's the risk of you only have that one health bar and that's it. And all the explosions and the little animal souls that you collect. It's so cool. Plus I love some of the slow motion moments. And just when a stage is like going upwards slowly, you know you're coming to something like big and nasty. It's so cool. This is probably one of my favorite boss fights, to be honest. Mainly because there are so many individual sections to tackle, and I love that kind of stuff. And the huge blast, like, look at that. And this music is so good. But yeah, I figured I would get on some of these commentary vids because my computer is running out of space right now. And with all the recording of gun nail runs that I'm doing and the guide that I'm working on for that, yeah, I've got to get on some of these projects and get things moving and off my computer. I could invest in like an external hard drive, but whatever. Plus the pacing is really cool. Like the fact that you have a few, like not even a few seconds, like 2 seconds of a breather when the ship is moving its position. I feel that's really cool to throw into the mix. Gives you, like, obviously it depends on what you're doing, but obviously, like it gives your weapons time to charge, or just a moment, depending on your skill level and like how crazy you think this is. It gives you just a bit of a mental reprieve, or to like, yeah, a second to get into position, or like whatever you want to do really. But typically you just see like enemies, or bosses rather, just going at it non-stop, one phase after another. So it's neat to pick out all the details that they crammed in here, which make for such a wicked experience. I love the architecture in this level, it's so cool. Like it's almost possessed or something, like this these corrupt formations or structures that someone or something has built. I think initially I wasn't, like I was just kind of like, okay, everything's crazy, I'm just flying through whatever. I wasn't paying too close attention. Or paying attention too closely, I mean. And so some of these crates, when they would spray out the like green shards, I wasn't aware of like what was hitting me, so it was like, why am I taking all this damage just from flying through a passage? Like, what is going on here? But yeah, all sorts of things can damage you. And I just love how they balance like everything being all over the place. And yet it doesn't feel like it's too much. Now, since it has been probably a week at least since I played this, or maybe a week, I think maybe it was last Saturday. I don't recall exactly, but I think the ending of this run is pretty intense. This was my first time, I think pretty much my first time doing hard mode. Certainly my first clear of it anyway. Like, if this wasn't a shmup, you would think you're just looking at, like, Castlevania backgrounds or something like that. So this is one section where obviously like certain weapons will take out certain groups of those colored things, but I'm not sure like if there's more to it than that, because sometimes I take huge damage going through. Sometimes it feels like, okay, they don't hurt me, and then other times they certainly do. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but for the most part, as long as I can just survive like blasting my way through here, then that's that, and I don't really ask questions about it, because whatever. But if I was gonna like do more with it, which I might someday, then that's when I would definitely do more digging and know what's what, since that's pretty important. And this boss can be pretty insane. Not like this first section, like you can still take hits and whatever, but I think when it comes to the part where he's just moving around wildly, that's where I start taking damage. Sometimes the run can end here. And that's the strange thing too, like obviously you're not seeing it yet, but sometimes, like I've watched one or two runs of other people's, and it looks like they can touch the boss, and yet sometimes when I am too close, I'm taking damage. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, am I just not seeing something because there's so much going on? Or what am I missing otherwise? Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, if there's one thing I love, it's peppering in games like this, which are very non-traditional, but they just leave such a mark. Like, they're so cool to experience. I wouldn't say I want to... Like, this is definitely a fairly wonky game in terms of how it plays and, like, just everything. And I wouldn't say that I would want to play those a lot, but every once in a while it's a really delightful experience. Commendable. And here we are at the final fight. I'm amazed that last fight actually went as well. I forgot that that went as smoothly as it did. For the most part, if you make it here, you're probably good, but you've just got to be careful, of course. Because you take one too many hits and then you're in that situation where you can't take another hit. Like, stuff like that. Like, since I haven't played it enough, I'm not sure if she always does that motion to that specific spot. But, like, obviously it's easy to dodge if that's the case, but otherwise it's one of those things where you can just end up taking a hit, and that's that. But thankfully you can heal quite a bit in this game too, so that helps. Especially when you only have one life. But it's so much more of a rush for me that way. And I love the way some of these attacks move, like those strings of white squares that just kind of like take little hops forward. There are some truly creative attack patterns and animations and just all that kind of stuff in here. And the explosions are awesome. I love it. I think when I do get back into it, I will probably just, like, my goal or whatever will just be to play on the hardest rank and get a clear in that. And to certainly learn more and clean up my playing of it. Since this is me more or less just fumbling around, like, very little idea as to what everything does. Just kind of feeling my way through it the best I can. I do really enjoy the situation that you face pretty much every second in relation to the charging of the weapons. It's like you can keep, like, for instance, the front shooting red weapon, it's like you can keep blasting, but if you ever want to charge up, then obviously you got to stop blasting. So the balance and how you weigh all that kind of stuff is great, because it's so satisfying unleashing the huge burst of each weapon, but at the same time you don't always want to stop firing. And I love things like that in games. Yeah, this match is definitely getting close. Oh my god. Oh man, one hit and I'm toast. But there we go. Oh, that was a close one for sure. Anyway, that pretty much wraps that up, so yeah, thanks for checking this out, and let me know what you think down below. If you want the version with no commentary, that will be unlisted in the description, like an unlisted video link, so feel free to check that out too. Anyway, thanks again, you guys have an awesome one, and we'll see you next time.